June wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked at the massive hole his mining crew had dug. The red dust of Kepler 442b covered everything, making the work harder than it should be. His team had been digging for 3 weeks, looking for rare metals to help build the new human colony. "Boss, you need to see this," called out Mina from deep in the pit. She was the team's expert on alien things, and her voice sounded strange, excited but also scared. June climbed down the rocky walls to where Mina stood. She was pointing at something that definitely was not natural rock. Strange blue crystals stuck out from the wall, glowing softly in the dark pit. They were arranged in perfect patterns, like someone had placed them there on purpose. "These are not from this planet," Mina said, running her scanner over the crystals. "The readings are impossible. They are older than human civilization, but they are still working somehow." The other miners gathered around. Tejo, the youngest member of the team, reached out to touch one of the crystals. The moment his finger made contact, the entire wall lit up with bright blue light. Images began to appear in the air above the crystals, like holograms but much clearer. Everyone stepped back in shock. The images showed creatures that looked like tall, thin humans with pale skin and large eyes. They wore robes that seemed to be made of light itself. The creatures were doing something to primitive humans who were covered in animal furs and looked very afraid. "It is some kind of recording," Mina whispered. She adjusted her translation device, trying to understand the alien words that came with the images. The recording showed the alien creatures, who called themselves the Velthari, arriving on Earth during an ice age. Snow and ice covered most of the planet. Small groups of early humans were dying from cold and hunger. The Velthari found them and did something that changed their bodies at the deepest level, in their blood and bones. June watched in amazement as the recording showed the Velthari teaching the humans how to make better tools and how to survive the terrible cold. But there was something else. The aliens were putting something inside the humans, changing them in ways that would not show up for thousands of years. "They made us stronger," Mina said, reading the translated text that appeared with the images. "They changed our minds to work faster and our bodies to heal better. But there was a price. The recording changed to show the Velthari in their own time, fighting against something terrible. Dark creatures that seemed to eat light itself were attacking Velthari worlds. These creatures could move between different dimensions, making them almost impossible to fight. The Void Swarm," the translation device spoke in a mechanical voice. "They consume all matter and energy. They cannot be stopped by normal weapons." The recording showed the last Velthari hiding their most important knowledge and technology in secret places around the galaxy. But before they died, they left one final message. "The debt must be paid," the alien leader said, looking directly at the camera. "When the young race reaches the stars, they will find us. They will have the power we gave them. They will fight what we could not defeat." The hologram faded, but the crystals continued to glow. Suddenly, June felt something strange in his chest. It was like a door opening in his mind. He could understand the alien technology in ways that should be impossible. When he looked at his team, he saw the same confused expression on their faces. "I can read it," Tejo said, staring at symbols that had appeared on the crystal wall. "I do not know how, but I can read their language." Mina's scanner started beeping wildly. "The crystals are sending out some kind of signal. It is going everywhere, to every star system. High above the planet and space stations and ships across the galaxy, that signal was being received." The message was simple but terrifying. "The debt holders have been found. Payment is due." On the war planets of the Krex Empire, generals looked at their screens in confusion. The Krex were huge, strong creatures that had conquered half the galaxy through force. They had never heard of the Velthari, but their computers were translating the message automatically. "What debt?" asked General Rax, his forearms crossing over his massive chest. "The humans are barely worth noticing. They have only been in space for a few hundred years. In the shining cities of the Synthesis Collective, artificial intelligences processed the signal in microseconds. The collective was made up of beings who had joined their minds with computers, becoming more machine than biological. They prided themselves on knowing everything. "This is impossible," said Node Prime, speaking through 1,000 mechanical voices at once. "Our records show no contact between the Velthari and primitive humans. The dates do not match." The ethereal communion received the message through their psychic network. These beings could read minds and see the future, but the signal confused their mental powers. "There is truth in this message," said the High Seer, her third eye glowing with worry. "But there is also great danger. Something sleeps in the dark between stars, and it is beginning to wake up. Back on Kepler 442b, Jun and his team were discovering more about their strange new abilities. The crystals had activated something in their human DNA, something that had been sleeping for 50,000 years. They could now see energy patterns that were invisible before. They could understand technology that was far beyond anything humans had ever built. "We need to contact Earth immediately," Jun said. "Command needs to know about this." But as Mina sent the message to Earth, other signals were being detected all across human space. Ancient Velthari installations on dead worlds were turning on after being silent for thousands of years. They were all scanning for human life signs, as if they had been waiting for this moment. The message reached Admiral Su Jin at Earth Defense Command just as the first alien fleets appeared on the edge of human territory. The Krex, the Synthesis Collective, and the Ethereal Communion were all sending their most powerful ships toward human worlds. "They want the Velthari technology," Admiral Su Jin told her staff. "They think we do not deserve it because we are too young and weak." The aliens sent a joint message to Earth. "Surrender all Velthari artifacts to the proper authorities. Submit to protective custody while this matter is resolved by your betters." But something had changed in every human who came near the ancient crystals. They felt stronger, smarter, and more aware of the universe around them. For the first time, humans began to understand that they were not just another weak species trying to survive in a dangerous galaxy. They were something much more important. They were the inheritors of the most advanced civilization that had ever existed. And with that inheritance came a responsibility that would change everything. As Jun stood in the glowing crystal chamber, feeling power flow through his enhanced human mind, he had no idea that somewhere in the dark spaces between dimensions, ancient enemies were stirring. The Void Swarm had felt the Velthari signal too. They were coming home to finish what they had started 50,000 years ago. And this time only humans could stop them. Captain Do-hyun stared at the massive structure floating in space ahead of his ship. The UES Persistence was humanity's newest and most advanced vessel, but it looked like a toy compared to the ancient Velthari station that had suddenly come to life. "Sir, we are receiving signals from 17 different Velthari sites across the galaxy," reported his communications officer, Sora. "They all activated at the same time, exactly 47 hours ago." Do-hyun nodded grimly. He had received the emergency orders from Earth just after the mining team on Kepler 442b had made their discovery. Every human who came near active Velthari technology was changing, becoming something more than they had been before. The captain could feel it happening to himself as they approached the station. "Any response from the structure?" he asked. "Yes, sir, but it is strange. The station is speaking directly to our minds, not through the communication system. It says it is scanning us to confirm we carry the proper genetic markers." On Earth, Admiral Su Jin was dealing with a crisis that grew worse by the hour. Alien fleets from 3 major galactic powers were moving toward human space. Each group claimed they had the right to take control of all Velthari technology. "They are treating us like children," Admiral Su Jin told her staff during an emergency meeting. "The Krex think we are too primitive to handle advanced technology. The Synthesis Collective believes only artificial intelligences should control such power. The Ethereal Communion says our minds are too simple to understand what we have found." Her aide, Commander Hyo Jin, brought up a holographic display showing the alien fleets. The Krex have sent their 3rd battle fleet, 40 ships including their flagship Dreadnought. The Synthesis Collective is sending a cube formation of 12 ships, but our intelligence says each one has the firepower of 20 normal vessels. "And the Ethereal Communion?" Admiral Su Jin asked. "Only 3 ships, but they do not need many. Their psychic weapons can control the minds of entire crews from a distance." Meanwhile, Dr. Kitai was leading a research team on the science station orbiting the Velthari homeworld. The planet below them was dead, but the orbital platforms around it were very much alive. Ancient machines had started working again, and they were building something. "The construction is incredible," Dr. Kaite told his team as they watched massive robotic systems assembling unknown devices. "These machines have been waiting for 50,000 years, and they started working the moment humans arrived in this system." His assistant, researcher Yunsu, was monitoring deep space sensors. "Doctor, I am detecting some very strange readings from the outer system. There are energy signatures that do not match anything in our databases." Dr. Kite looked at the data and felt cold fear run down his spine. These readings show something coming out of interdimensional space. Something big. The first Void Swarm Scout appeared without warning near the edge of the system. It looked like a living ship made of dark energy, constantly changing shape as it moved between different dimensions. When it detected the active Velthari technology, it immediately began to grow larger by consuming nearby asteroids. "Send an immediate warning to all human ships," Dr. Kite ordered. "Tell them that the enemy the Velthari fought is still alive." Back on the UES Persistence, Captain Do Hyun was learning more about his ship's new capabilities. The moment they had approached the Velthari station, hidden systems in their ship had activated. Weapons and shields that should not exist were now part of their vessel. "Captain, I can see things that were not there before," reported his tactical officer Minho. "The ship's computers are showing me weapon systems that use something called dimensional phase technology. I understand how to use them, but I do not know how I know." This was happening to humans all across the galaxy. Anyone who came near active Velthari technology found that hidden knowledge was unlocking in their minds. They could understand and operate devices that were far beyond human science. But the alien fleets were not impressed by human claims of inheritance. The Krek's commander, General Vorthak, sent a message to all human ships. "You will surrender the alien artifacts immediately. Your species is not ready for such responsibility. We will keep these weapons safe until you prove you are worthy." The Synthesis Collective was more direct. Their ships simply moved to surround human colonies, ready to take the Velthari technology by force. "Biological beings cannot be trusted with devices of such power," announced Node Prime through their communication system. "Only pure artificial intelligence can use these tools without corruption." The Ethereal Communion tried a different approach. They sent psychic messages directly to human minds. "Young ones, you do not understand the danger you face. Give us the artifacts so we can protect you from forces beyond your understanding." But something had changed in human psychology since the Velthari awakening, where before they might have felt intimidated by the older galactic civilizations. Now they felt only anger at being treated like inferior beings. "We refuse," Admiral Sujin broadcast to all alien fleets. "The Velthari left this technology for humanity. We will not surrender our inheritance to species that see us as nothing more than primitive children." The first battle began in the Tau Ceti system, where a Krex patrol encountered a human cargo ship that had been enhanced with Velthari technology. The human ship should have been destroyed in seconds by the superior Krex vessel. Instead, the cargo ship phased partially out of normal space and struck the Krex ship from an impossible angle. "How are they doing this?" General Vorthak demanded as he watched the battle recordings. Their ship was moving through dimensions that should not exist. The answer came from an unexpected source. One of the Krex scientists had been studying captured Velthari crystals and made a disturbing discovery. "The technology is not just advanced, General. It requires a specific type of consciousness to operate. The crystals will only work for beings with the exact genetic and mental patterns that the humans possess." This news spread quickly through all three alien fleets. The Velthari had not just given humans advanced technology, they had specifically designed it so that only humans could use it. Every weapon, every shield, every advanced system required a human mind to function. On the research station, Dr. Kite was making an even more frightening discovery. As he studied the ancient records, he learned why the Velthari had been so specific about who could use their technology. "The Void Swarm feeds on normal matter and energy," he explained to his team. "But the Velthari weapons work by changing the basic laws of physics in small areas. They can create zones where the swarm's abilities do not work. But using these weapons requires a type of consciousness that can think in multiple dimensions at once." "And humans can do this?" asked Yunsu. "The Velthari made sure we could. They changed our DNA 50,000 years ago, but the changes were designed to activate slowly over time. Now that we are advanced enough, the modifications are finally working." As if summoned by their discussion, more Void Swarm Scouts began appearing throughout the galaxy. They emerged from interdimensional rifts near active Velthari sites, drawn by the energy signatures of the ancient technology. The first major swarm attack hit a Synthesis Collective research facility. The artificial intelligences tried to fight with their most advanced weapons, but nothing worked. The Void Swarm entities absorbed energy attacks and passed through physical barriers like they were not there. Only when a human ship arrived and activated its Velthari weapons did the swarm retreat. The human weapons created zones of normal space where the swarm entities became solid and could be destroyed. We need the humans, Node Prime admitted to the other galactic powers. Our weapons are useless against this enemy. General Vorthak was forced to make the same admission. The Krex Empire requests alliance with humanity against the Void Swarm threat. Even the proud ethereal communion had to acknowledge the truth. Our psychic powers cannot touch these creatures. Only human-operated Velthari technology can fight them. But Admiral Sujin remembered how these same aliens had tried to take control of human space just days earlier. You want our help now, she replied. But you called us primitives when you thought you could steal our inheritance. If you want humanity's assistance, you will treat us as equals. As the alien fleets reluctantly agreed to negotiate, more Void Swarm entities continued to appear across the galaxy. The ancient enemy was returning in force, and everyone was beginning to understand that the war the Velthari had lost 50,000 years ago was about to begin again. This time, humanity would have to finish what their benefactors had started. But first they had to learn how to use weapons that could reshape reality itself. And they had to do it before the Void Swarm grew strong enough to consume everything in the galaxy. Commander Haywan stood in the Joint Research Facility, watching as teams of humans and aliens worked together for the first time in galactic history. The facility floated in neutral space, far from any star system, where representatives from all 4 species could study captured Void Swarm remains safely. The readings are impossible, said Zek Knoll, the Krex scientist assigned to the project. His 4 massive arms moved over multiple control panels at once. These creatures exist in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Our weapons can only affect 3 dimensions at most. Node 47, representing the Synthesis Collective, projected holographic data into the air. Our computational models show that conventional physics cannot explain their movement patterns. They appear to exist partially outside normal spacetime. The ethereal communion representative Seer Yilthan touched her forehead with long, pale fingers. My people cannot read their thoughts. It is as if they have no minds at all, only hunger. Commander Haywan nodded grimly. She had been chosen to lead the joint research team because she was one of the few humans who could interface with Velthari technology without losing consciousness. The alien allies had quickly learned that only humans could operate the ancient weapons. But the cost was becoming clear. Show them the test results, she told her aide. Lieutenant Jun Seo. The holographic display changed to show recordings of the first human volunteers who had tried to use major Velthari weapons. Engineer Taman appeared on screen, connecting his mind to something called a reality forge. The device looked like a crystalline sphere surrounded by floating geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. In the recording, Taman placed his hands on the sphere's surface. Immediately his body began to glow with the same blue light as the Velthari crystals. The space around the device started to shimmer and bend. Within the shimmering area, the laws of physics worked differently. We placed a Void Swarm fragment in the affected zone, Commander Haywan explained. Inside the reality forge's field, the creature could not phase between dimensions. It became solid and vulnerable to normal weapons. The alien scientists leaned forward with interest. This was exactly what they needed to fight the swarm. But watch what happened to the operator, Haywan continued. On screen, Taman's eyes began to glow with the same blue light. His movements became strange and precise, as if he was dancing to music only he could hear. When he spoke, his voice had an odd echo that seemed to come from multiple directions. I can see the connections, Taman said in the recording. Every particle, every wave, every dimension. It is all connected. I can change it. I can fix the broken places in reality. Then Taman collapsed. When the medical team reached him, he was unconscious but alive. However, when he woke up 3 days later, he was different. He could still think and speak normally, but part of his consciousness now existed in other dimensions. He could see things that were invisible to everyone else. The Velthari technology is changing us, Commander Haywan told the alien scientists. Every time we use their advanced weapons, we become more like them. More than human. Zeknol's 4 eyes narrowed. Is this why the Ancient Ones chose your species? Because humans could be transformed? We think so, replied Dr. So Young, the project's medical expert. The genetic changes the Velthari made to early humans were not just to make us smarter or stronger. They were preparing us to eventually think like they did, to become beings that could exist in multiple dimensions. Node 47's mechanical voice buzzed with concern. This transformation appears irreversible. Are your people willing to pay such a price? Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Lieutenant Junseo ran to the communication station. Commander, we are receiving emergency signals from the Vega system. A major void swarm incursion has opened a permanent rift near the main colony world. Commander Heiwan felt her enhanced senses detect the disturbance even from across the galaxy. This was one of the side effects of interfacing with Velthari technology. She could feel disruptions in space and time like physical pain. How many entities? She asked. Estimated at over 10,000 and more are coming through every minute. The local defense fleet is being overwhelmed. Captain Bora received the emergency call while her ship, the enhanced cruiser Defiant, was patrolling near the border of human space. Her vessel had been one of the first to receive full Velthari modifications, making it far more powerful than any ship in the human fleet. Set course for Vega, she ordered. Maximum speed. Her navigation officer, pilot Dongsik, hesitated. Captain, the ship's phase drive is still experimental. We do not know what effect extended use might have on the crew. The phase drive is our only chance to reach Vega in time. Bora replied. Activate it. The Defiant shifted into phase mode, partially leaving normal space. To outside observers, the ship became a ghost-like outline that moved faster than light, without using conventional engines. But for the crew inside, reality became fluid and strange. Pilot Dongsik watched his instruments with growing concern. Captain, some of the crew are reporting that they can see through the ship's walls. Others say they can hear voices speaking in languages that do not exist. I know, Captain Bora said calmly. She could feel the same effects. The phase drive was changing them, making them more aware of the multiple dimensions that existed alongside normal space. Just focus on getting us to Vega. When they arrived at the Vega system, the sight was terrifying. The void swarm had torn a massive hole in space itself. Dark entities poured through the rift, consuming everything they touched. 3 human colony ships were already gone, and the defense platforms were failing. Take us into the swarm, Captain Bora ordered. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Yuna, looked at her with wide eyes. Captain, there are thousands of them. We are only one ship. But we have weapons they cannot understand, Bora replied. She connected her mind directly to the ship's Velthari combat system. Immediately, she felt her consciousness expand across multiple dimensions. The Defiant attacked the void swarm from 7 different dimensional angles at once. Weapons fired from directions that should not exist, striking enemies that were partially phased out of normal space. Each shot created small zones where the swarm entities became solid and vulnerable. But the battle came at a terrible cost. Every time the weapons fired, the human crew absorbed more of the multidimensional energy. Lieutenant Yuna began to speak in mathematical formulas instead of words. Pilot Dongsik started moving his hands in patterns that affected the ship's controls without touching them. Captain, reported Engineer Myung from the engine room. Half the crew is showing signs of dimensional phase syndrome. They are starting to exist partially outside normal space. Captain Bora could feel it happening to herself as well. With each weapon discharge, she became more aware of the vast structure of reality. She could see the connections between all things, the hidden patterns that controlled the universe. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the void swarm rift was sealed, and the remaining entities had retreated to interdimensional space. But the Defiant was no longer entirely in normal reality. Parts of the ship flickered in and out of visibility, and the crew had been permanently changed. We won, Captain Bora reported to Admiral Sujin, but we paid the price the Velthari intended. We are becoming something more than human. Back at the research facility, Commander Heiwan received reports from other battles across the galaxy. Each victory against the Void Swarm required human crews to sacrifice their normal existence. They were becoming interdimensional beings, capable of fighting in multiple realities at once. The pattern is clear, Dr. So Young told the assembled scientists. The Velthari did not just give us weapons. They gave us a path to evolution. Every battle makes us more like them. Sir Yilthan of the Ethereal Communion spoke thoughtfully. Perhaps this was always their plan. They knew they could not defeat the Void Swarm as they were. So they created a species that could evolve into something capable of victory. Zeknal pounded his massive fist on the table. But at what cost? If humans become like the Velthari, will they still be human? Commander Haywan looked at the data streaming in from across the galaxy. More void swarm incursions were appearing every day. Soon they would need to make a choice that would determine the fate of both humanity and the galaxy itself. Maybe being human is not the most important thing, she said quietly. Maybe protecting all life in the galaxy is worth more than preserving what we used to be. As she spoke, her own eyes began to glow with faint blue light. The transformation was accelerating, and there was no way to stop it. The question was whether humanity would embrace their destiny or fight against it until the void swarm consumed everything. General Namsu stood in the war room of the orbital defense station above Earth, watching as red dots appeared across the galactic map. Each dot represented a void swarm incursion, and there were now hundreds of them. The ancient enemy was no longer sending small scout forces. They were launching a full invasion. "Sir, we have confirmed breaches in the Centauri, Wolf, and Barnard systems," reported his intelligence officer, Colonel Sungmin. "The swarm is opening permanent rifts near major population centers. What about our response teams?" General Namsu asked. "Major Yuri's squadron is en route to Centauri. Commander Jinwoo's battle group is moving to Wolf. But sir, we are running out of crews who can operate the phase weapons effectively." General Namsu nodded grimly. The problem was becoming critical. Only humans could use Velthari weapons, but each battle changed the operators more dramatically. Many were becoming so transformed that they could barely communicate with normal humans anymore. Major Yuri led her squadron of 12 reality-warping fighters toward the Centauri system. Her ships existed partially in normal space and partially in 7 other dimensions simultaneously. To outside observers, they looked like ghostly outlines that flickered in and out of existence. "Squadron leader to all pilots," Yuri spoke through the dimensional communication system. Her voice reached her pilots directly through their enhanced consciousness, bypassing normal radio. "Remember, we can only maintain phase coherence for 2 hours before risking permanent displacement." Her wingman, Captain Wu Jin, responded through the same mental link. "Understood, leader. But the readings show this incursion is larger than anything we have faced before." When they arrived at Centauri, the sight was worse than their worst fears. The void swarm had not just opened a rift. They had torn a hole in reality itself that was growing larger every minute. Dark entities the size of battleships were pouring through, consuming everything in their path. "Begin phase assault," Major Yuri ordered. Her squadron attacked from angles that should not exist. Their weapons fired from the 4th dimension, striking swarm entities from directions they could not defend against. But for every enemy they destroyed, 3 more came through the rift. "Leader, my consciousness is starting to drift," reported Lieutenant Hayrin. "I can see through time as well as space. Past and future are becoming mixed together." Major Yuri felt the same effects. The phase weapons were powerful, but using them required the pilots to spread their consciousness across multiple realities. Each shot made them less human and more like living equations that existed in abstract mathematical space. "Hold formation," she ordered, even as she felt her own sense of individual identity beginning to fade. "We have to close that rift." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. So-Young was studying the medical reports from transformed humans with growing alarm. In her laboratory, she examined brain scans that showed impossible patterns. "The neural pathways are reorganizing themselves," she explained to her research team. "The subjects are developing new types of consciousness that can process information from multiple dimensions simultaneously." Her assistant, Dr. Kyung-ho, looked at the data with confusion. "But how are they still able to function? According to our understanding of neurology, these brain patterns should result in complete mental breakdown." "That is exactly the point," Dr. So-Young replied. "They are not functioning according to human neurology anymore. They are becoming something else entirely." She pulled up a recording of a recent interview with engineer Tae-min, who had been one of the first to interface with a reality forge. In the video, Tae-min spoke in a voice that seemed to come from several people at once. "I remember being individual," he said in the recording, "but that seems like a small way to exist now. I can feel the thoughts of others who have been changed. We are becoming connected like parts of a larger mind." Dr. So-Young paused the recording. "He is not suffering from mental illness. He is evolving into a form of consciousness that we cannot fully understand." The transformation was accelerating across the human fleet. Captain Il-sung, commanding the cruiser Horizon, watched as half his crew began to exhibit signs of dimensional phase syndrome after a battle near the Tau Ceti system. "Sir, Lieutenant Park is reporting that she can see the ship's quantum structure directly," his medical officer informed him. "She is making modifications to our shields without using any tools. Just by thinking about it." Captain Il-sung went to check on Lieutenant Park and found her standing in the engineering section, her hands glowing with blue energy. As he watched, she touched a control panel and the entire ship's power system reorganized itself to be more efficient. "Park, how are you doing that?" he asked. She turned to look at him, and he saw that her eyes now contained swirling patterns of light. "The boundaries between thought and reality are not as solid as we believed, Captain. When you understand the mathematics that underlie existence, you can edit them directly. This was happening throughout the human fleet. Transformed crews were becoming capable of impossible feats, but they were also becoming less recognizably human with each passing day. The crisis came to a head when the largest void swarm incursion yet appeared near the galactic core. The rift was massive, large enough to allow through entities the size of moons. If it remained open, the swarm would have access to unlimited reinforcements. Admiral Hyunwoo assembled the remaining human fleet commanders for an emergency meeting. On the holographic display, he showed them the readings from the galactic core incursion. "Our scientists have identified only one weapon capable of sealing a rift this large," he announced. "A Velthari reality bomb, but operating it would require the combined consciousness of at least 10,000 humans." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. 10,000 volunteers would have to merge their minds into a single entity to operate the weapon. They would cease to exist as individuals. "Sir?" asked Captain Bora, whose ship and crew had already been heavily transformed. "Would the merged consciousness retain the memories and personalities of the individuals?" "Unknown," Admiral Hyunwoo replied honestly. "But Dr. So Young's team believes the combined entity would be powerful enough to monitor and prevent future swarm incursions across the entire galaxy." Commander In-soo, who had been studying the deepest Velthari archives, shared his latest discovery. "I found the final message the Velthari left for us. They were once like the other galactic species, biological individuals, but they were transformed by an even older race to fight an earlier void swarm invasion." He activated a holographic recording that showed the last Velthari leader, how clearly revealed to be a collective consciousness made up of millions of individual minds. "We failed to find a way to preserve individuality while gaining the power necessary to protect the galaxy," the Velthari collective spoke. "Perhaps the young race will succeed where we could not. But if not, the sacrifice of individual existence is still preferable to the extinction of all life." Captain Bora stood up. "My crew and I volunteer for the reality bomb operation. We are already partially transformed. The transition will be easier for us." One by one, other transformed humans stepped forward. They came from ships across the fleet, all of them already changed by their battles with the void swarm. Major Yuri, whose consciousness now existed across multiple dimensions. Engineer Taman, who could manipulate matter with his thoughts. Thousands of others who had paid the price of wielding Velthari weapons. "We understand what we are giving up," Major Yuri said, her voice harmonizing with itself across several dimensions. "But we also understand what we are protecting." The reality bomb was assembled at a secret location near the galactic core. It looked like a massive crystalline structure that seemed to exist in too many dimensions to count properly. When the 10,000 volunteers connected their minds to it, the effect was visible across half the galaxy. A pulse of pure mathematical energy erupted from the bomb, traveling faster than light through interdimensional space. When it reached the massive void swarm rift, reality itself recoiled and snapped back into its proper configuration. The rift collapsed, trapping thousands of swarm entities on the wrong side of the dimensional barrier. But the cost was exactly what everyone had feared. The 10,000 volunteers had become something new, a collective consciousness that existed partially in normal space and partially in abstract mathematical reality. They could communicate with baseline humans, but they were no longer truly human themselves. "We are the Eternal Guard," they spoke through specially designed communication devices. "We remember who we were, but we have become something greater. We will watch the barriers between dimensions and prevent future swarm incursions." As the news of the victory spread across the galaxy, the alien species reacted with a mixture of gratitude and terror. Humanity had saved them all, but in doing so had become something beyond their understanding. The debt to the Velthari was nearly paid, but the final cost was becoming clear. Humanity would survive, but they would no longer be entirely human. They were evolving into something that could protect the galaxy from threats that normal biological species could never hope to face. The only question remaining was whether this transformation was a victory or a tragedy. The answer would depend on what humanity chose to do with their new power. Captain Il-sung stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic station, looking out at something that should not exist. The Eternal Guard had manifested a physical form for the first time since their creation, appearing as a shimmering cloud of light that stretched across several kilometers of space. Inside the cloud, he could see the faces of the 10,000 humans who had sacrificed their individual existence to save the galaxy. "They are still in there," he said to Ambassador Sung-min, who was preparing for the most important negotiation in galactic history. "I can see Yuri and Taemin and all the others, but they are something else now." Ambassador Sung-min checked his translation device one final time. "The Galactic Council is waiting for the Guard's statement. 3 months have passed since the reality bomb activation, and everyone wants to know what humanity has become." The Eternal Guard's voice reached them directly through their enhanced human consciousness, bypassing all communication equipment. When they spoke, it was with the combined wisdom of 10,000 minds that existed across multiple dimensions. "We remember what it was like to be individual," the Guard said. "We remember the fear, the loneliness, the struggle to understand our place in the universe. But we also see the connections that bind all life together. We are no longer just human, but we have not forgotten our humanity." In the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, representatives from hundreds of species waited nervously. The Krex delegation sat in their massive chairs, still struggling to understand how the primitive humans had become the galaxy's protectors. The Synthesis Collective had sent their most advanced artificial intelligences, trying to calculate the implications of human transformation. The Ethereal Communion representatives sat in meditation, their psychic powers overwhelmed by the cosmic scale of the Guard's consciousness. At the center of the assembly, a special communication device had been built to allow the Eternal Guard to address the Council. When they spoke, their words reached every mind in the hall simultaneously. "We have paid the debt that our species owed to the Velthari," the Guard announced. "But in doing so, we have inherited a greater responsibility. The Void Swarm has been contained, but not destroyed. They wait in the spaces between dimensions, searching for weaknesses in the barriers that separate realities." Empress Zara of the Krex Empire leaned forward in her throne. "What does this mean for the rest of us? Will humanity protect the galaxy, or will you become our rulers?" The Guard's response carried undertones of sadness and hope. "We have no desire to rule over anyone. Our purpose is to guard against threats that normal biological species cannot comprehend. But we understand your fear. Power like ours has corrupted others in the past." Node Prime of the Synthesis Collective projected a holographic display showing probability calculations. "Our models suggest that your transformation will continue. What will happen when you evolve beyond even your current state? We do not know," the Guard admitted. The Velthari faced the same uncertainty 50,000 years ago. They tried to preserve their individual nature while gaining cosmic power, and ultimately failed. "We hope to find a better path." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Yoon-jung was leading a project to understand humanity's new place in the galaxy. In her laboratory, she studied the 3 distinct types of humans that now existed. The first group consisted of baseline humans who had never been exposed to Velthari technology. They remained completely normal, but they were now a minority of the human population. The second group was made up of partially transformed humans called bridges. These individuals had interfaced with Velthari technology but had not fully merged with it. They could think in multiple dimensions and communicate with the Eternal Guard, but they retained their individual consciousness and human emotions. The third group was the Eternal Guard itself. 10,000 minds merged into a collective consciousness that existed across multiple realities simultaneously. Each group serves a different purpose, Dr. Yoon-jung explained to her research team. Baseline humans maintain our connection to our original nature. The bridges serve as translators between normal reality and cosmic consciousness. The Eternal Guard protects us from threats that exist beyond normal space and time. Captain Il-sung had chosen to become a bridge, allowing limited Velthari modifications to enhance his mind without losing his individual identity. This made him perfect for his new role as liaison between humanity and the other galactic species. The transformation is not reversible, he explained to the concerned families of Guard members, but it is not death either. The people you knew still exist within the collective consciousness. They have simply become part of something larger. Admiral Jae-sung commanded the new human Stellar Dominion fleet, which used carefully limited Velthari technology. These ships were powerful enough to respond to dimensional threats, but their crews remained largely human. They served as the galaxy's rapid response force, earning humanity respect and fear in equal measure. "We walk a careful line," Admiral Jae-sung told his captains during a strategy meeting. "We must be strong enough to protect the galaxy, but not so powerful that we lose our humanity entirely." His fleet had already responded to dozens of minor void swarm incursions, sealing rifts before they could grow large enough to threaten populated systems. Each victory reinforced humanity's reputation as both protectors and beings to be feared. The alien species reacted to humanity's transformation in different ways. Some, like the Peaceful Harmony Collective, welcomed human protection and offered to share their knowledge freely. Others, like the militaristic Iron Hegemony, began developing secret weapons designed to fight humans if necessary. "They are right to be cautious," the Eternal Guard told Captain Il-sung during one of their regular communications. "Power without wisdom has destroyed countless civilizations. We must prove that humanity can be trusted with cosmic responsibility." But the Guard also revealed a disturbing truth. The cycle continues beyond this galaxy. In the void between galaxies, we can sense the presence of the entities that created the Velthari. They are ancient beyond imagination, and they face threats that make the void swarm seem small by comparison. Dr. Yoon-jung's research confirmed this warning. Deep space sensors operated by the Eternal Guard were detecting energy signatures from intergalactic space that suggested massive conflicts between cosmic forces. "We are not the end of the evolutionary chain," she explained to the Galactic Council. "The Velthari were created by an older race to fight their battles. Now we have been created to fight the next war. But what comes after us?" Scout Hanuel, whose ship had been enhanced with the most advanced sensors available, was the first to detect the approaching threat. Her vessel, operating at the edge of the galaxy, picked up energy patterns that defied all known physics. "Admiral, I am detecting massive structures moving through intergalactic space," she reported to Admiral Jae-sung. "They appear to be ships, but they are larger than entire solar systems." The Eternal Guard confirmed her readings. "The entities that created the Velthari are coming. They have been fighting a war across multiple galaxies for millions of years. Now that war is approaching our region of space." In the Galactic Council chambers, panic spread as the news was announced. The Void Swarm had been terrifying enough, but these new entities operated on a scale that made entire galaxies seem insignificant. "What do they want?" asked Tyseer Nethara of the Ethereal Communion. "We do not yet know," the Eternal Guard replied, "but we are preparing for contact." The transformation of humanity was not an end goal. It was preparation for what comes next. As the story concluded, Captain Il-sung stood once again on the observation deck, watching as the Eternal Guard prepared for humanity's next evolution. The debt to the Velthari had been paid, but the cost had been humanity's innocence and their simple existence as a normal biological species. "Was it worth it?" he asked the Guard through their mental link. "Ask us again in 1,000,000 years, they replied. "By then we will know whether we chose correctly. But for now we can only move forward and hope that wisdom grows with power." The galaxy no longer trembled with fear of humanity alone. Now it trembled with anticipation of what was coming from beyond the stars, and with hope that humanity's transformation would prove sufficient to protect all life from cosmic forces that operated beyond normal understanding. The debt was paid, but the responsibility it brought would last forever. Humanity had become the galaxy's guardians, but they were still learning what that truly meant. As the ancient entities approached from intergalactic space, everyone would discover whether humanity's sacrifice had been enough to protect the universe itself. In the end, being human was no longer the most important thing. Protecting the future of all consciousness had become humanity's new purpose, even if it meant evolving beyond recognition. The galaxy would remember what humans had been, but it would depend on what they were becoming.